All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, YAHAWASHI, Bahashem, Rachak. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations unto the Akim and her pushing his gospel in truth and in sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, YAHAWASHI. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, YAHAWASHI, Lord, winneth upon their houses. This is Brother Quanah Watts from the Arizona Great Millstone Camp. Come back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, YAHAWASHI, Lord will. It is edifying, Lord will. It is straight to the point. And, I come across, the Elder Barak, his video, as you see right here, it says GMS Barak Allah 77, right? That's the elder from the LA camp, GMS LA. And he doing a video, as it says, all domain anomalies, right? Galactic Federation. And as you see right here on the screen, he's playing a video, right, of basically, a woman, reporting on, these, what they're calling so-called UFOs, right, or UAPs, right, which ultimately stands for unidentified flying object or unidentified aerial phenomenon, right, which we understand that these things that are flying around, right, that people are calling, UFOs and UAPs, they are identified as the chariots of Israel, the chariots of YAHAWASHI, and they're, they're popping up a hell of a lot more, as the days go on. In this video, which you can go and watch it. I'm not going to play, the video, but it says that, I think it was, just in 1 year, it was like 9,000 or something, like 9,000 sightings, right, were reported, and that's what was stated in this video. So go and watch the video, subscribe to the elders page, and be edified. But I want to hit up that word anomaly, as they're calling them, right? All domain anomalies, right? And then you go into that word anomaly on the, the etymology. It says unevenness, right? It says deviation from the common rule, right? So it's outside the normal, expectation. And there was a video of a former, Air Force pilot, that ultimately was, stating that these, so-called UFOs or UAPs, there are thousands of years ahead of the technology that Esau possesses today, man. They're able to do, going Mach 1, 2, 3, however fast, right, and hit a complete perfect 90-degree angle, right, without having to stop or swoop, or, you know what I mean? They just hit it. They just on a dime, hit a quick right, boom, and then this video, and then the video, right, that the elder Barak was playing, the lady said that these, they've been caught on video coming out of water and shooting into the water, not causing any splashes. And this is something that, these people, right, are just baffled about, man. These people are baffled, and truly these people are scared, man. Scriptures say to be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, man. And these people are dismayed. These people are afraid of what they're seeing, and this is why, you have right here, right, Esau basically tripping out about this 3-eye atlas or 3-1 atlas, right, which they're saying is could be a so-called mothership, right, which we don't call it a mothership, we call it a fathership, man, right, because the father is greater, right, so they're calling it a mothership, we call it a fathership, man, and it's scaring the shit out of Esau, man, to the point where he's got to basically set up his, galactic defenses, if you will, right? This is on the online, it's like an end time headlines. It says NASA group launches defense probe to protect Earth from 3-eye or 3-1 Atlas, right? So they're basically up in arms, man. Because again, they're scared. They don't know what these things, are capable of. You know, YAHAWASHI has his prophets out here telling you people what they are, and yet still, man, these people are still calling them UFOs or UAPs, man. You know, and then looking at the, you know, the maneuvers and, you know, acrobatics that these things are ultimately, you know, doing, right? You had a video of a chariot basically getting shot with missiles and no damage, you know, flying over a nuclear site, setting off nuclear, you know, setting off the bomb, and they have to turn them off. Not necessarily to the point where they explode, but they start the countdown basically. You know, they got to hurry up and turn them off, man. You know, these chariots, man, they're nothing like this world has ever seen before, man. They're truly, right, outside of this world, right? And this is why Esau is ultimately scared, man. You know, it says a NASA-backed coalition has launched a targeted campaign against Comet 3I Atlas, which again they're going back and forth, right? Calling it a comet, calling it a, you know, mothership, right? Saying it's aliens, you know. In reality, it's the angels in those chariots, man. You know, it's the angel in those chariots, and it very well could be, you know, a very large chariot, man. Where we believe through the Spirit it is, you know. It says a Manhattan-sized interstellar object displaying bizarre traits that hint at possible extraterrestrial origins. Right, first spotted on July 1st, 2025, and imaged by Hubble on July 21st. The comet defies norms with an anti-tail pointing toward the sun and emissions of nickel tetracarbonyl, an alloy unseen in nature, only produced industrially, which I don't know how they would know that. You know what I mean? They're not able to go up there and take samples and bring it down. You know, Esau, he's always, you know, saying some stupid shit, man, really to deceive you people, but, you know, he's not able to deceive the very elect, man. You know, Esau trying to play it out like he's some type of smart guy, but Esau doesn't know, you know, what's up there. You know, he's never been to the moon, right? He's never been outside the firmament, man. You know, so how could he know, right? But it says, Harvard astrophysicist Dr. Avi Loeb noted the alloy nickel tetracarbonyl has only been previously witnessed in human manufacturing. Again, bullshit, right? It says its non-gravitational acceleration and path near Jupiter, Venus and Mars fuel speculation of alien tech, which again, they're not aliens, right? They're chariots, right? It says Loeb suggested it could be a massive mothership using solar gravity for maneuvers, adding, if 3I Atlas is a massive mothership, it will likely continue along its original gravitational path and ultimately exit the solar system. And who knows, man, it could just be staying out far, right? Until it's time and the Lord has that fathership ultimately show up, man. You know? And if they're saying it's the size of Manhattan, that's not big enough, man. You know, for the ship that YAHAWASHI is prophesied to come on. And we're going to grab that scripture, man, right? Because in all reality, right, this is right here is leading to prophecy, right? It's leading to that war in heaven that the scriptures speak of in Revelation, the 12th chapter. You know, it says an international asteroid warning network, or IAWN, added 3I Atlas to its threat list, right? If it's an asteroid, right, why are you adding it to a threat list, right? It says the first interstellar target, a comet campaign from November 27, 2025 through January 27, 2026, will refine tracking preceded by a workshop on astronomy techniques. As the comet nears perihelion, IAWN frames this as a stargazing prep, not full alert, yet online reactions buzz with unease. One X user fretting, they're calling it a test of improved astronomy methods. In other words, the object isn't behaving like it should, which again is scaring these damn devils, man. This is why they're setting up these different probes, and you know, they got this space force. You know, they don't have a space force for no reason, man. You know, you got an air force to protect your air, right? The space that, you know, you can fly in, right? But they got a space force, right, to ultimately do what? To fight Yahawashi and the chariots, man. You know? Again, which is prophecy, right? This is Revelations chapter 12 and verse 7. It says, and there was war in heaven, right? And that's talking about this airspace, right? In the heaven, right? In the sky, right? It says, and there was war in heaven, and this is coming, right? Again, this 3-eye atlas or 3-1 atlas very well could be one of those chariots, right? That when Yahawashi cracks the sky, it's going to be one of them chariots that's coming, right? Ready, you know, shooting out them laser beams and whatnot, man. You know, because the scriptures talk about in Jude, which the elder got it in his, you know, in his lessons, that, you know, that he's coming with 10,000, right, of his saints, man. Tens of thousands of his saints, man. He's coming with an army, right? Yahawashi, when he comes, he's coming with an army, and it's not gonna be no small ass army. He's not gonna have no, you know, weak ass entrance like these kings, you know, of this world, you know. And as we see him in the movies, no, Yahawashi's entrance is going to eclipse any entrance that has ever been imagined, right? Ever been drawn out, ever been put on wax, right? Yahawashi going to eclipse all that, man, right? Because he's coming with an angelic force, you know, you know, coming to make war, as it says right here. It says, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, which is going into Esau, Edom, you know. And the dragon fought and his angels. So you're going to have, you know, again, the militaries and really, you know, Yahawashi, you're going to have all these nations fighting, right? You go back to the Valley of Yahawashi in Joel, the 2nd chapter, right? It tells you that these nations are ultimately going to be gathered, right? You know, fighting one another, right? And they're ultimately going to be, you know, Yahawashi is going to crack the sky. And then what's going to happen, man? These nations are going to turn and fight, you know, Yahawashi. You know, and what's going to happen? They're going to lose, right? As it says right here, it says, and prevailed not, neither was their place found anymore in heaven. That's right, man. You know, they're going to be destroyed, man. So let's go ahead and get a deeper, you know, a deeper look into exactly what it's going to look like. And we'll start at verse 1, right? The 2nd Esdras, you know, 13 and 1, right? It says, and this is, you know, a vision that Ezra was ultimately given, you know, of, you know, Yahawashi's coming, right? It says, and it came to pass after 7 days, I dreamed a dream by night, and lo, there arose a wind from the sea that it moved all the waves thereof, man, right? It says, and I behold, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven, which is Yahawashi and the chariots. All right, let's go ahead and grab this, right? Since I quoted it, you know, this is Jude 1, and what is that? Right here, this is Jude 1 and 14. It says, and Enoch also, the 7th from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, behold, the Lord, right, Yahawashi, cometh with 10,000s of his saints, right, to execute judgment upon all, and to convince all that are ungodly, right, among them of all their ungodly deeds which they have ungodly committed, and of all their hard speeches which ungodly sinners have spoken against him, right? Right, so he's coming to judge the people, man. You know, it's going to start with their armies, right? Isaiah, the 34th chapter. You know, he's coming to judge these armies, right? That's going to be number 1, you know. It says what? Verse 3, 2nd Esdras 13 and verse 3, it says, and I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. And when he turned his countenance to look, all the things trembled that were seen under him, right? Because it's going to be a fearful sight, man. Right? When Yahawashi comes, hey, man, it's going to be like something, again, they're calling the chariots alone an anomaly, right? Something that's outside the common rule, something that's outside, you know, the normal, you know, understanding, right? Well, how much more when Yahawashi comes, man, you know, and it's even grander than what we see these chariots, you know, doing now, you know. You had chariots at one point that were looking like, you know, what are those jellyfish in the sky? You know, there's a YouTube video, you know, a beloved brother, man. I can't remember what brother ultimately does the YouTube video, but it's called GMS Word of Life, right? The beginning of each word, right, is capital, right? GMS, all caps, word, the W is all caps, of, right? The O is all capped, and life, The L is all capped, right? And you put them together, right? One word, GMS, word of life. And you go on to that YouTube and you'll see all the different videos that the brothers have posted, right? And seen, you know, throughout the years. And you'll see, man, years back, man, I think it was like 3 or 4 years back, there was one that a brother had spotted, man, and it looked like a freaking jellyfish in the freaking sky, man. Had the little tentacles flowing like it was in the water and everything like that, you know? Shoot, you can look on my and my shorts, right? My short videos that I post on YouTube. Go to my channel, go to the shorts, and you'll see that there was a crimson red. It looked like maybe like a oval, kind of like a sphere, right, on its side, and it was spinning. And it looked like it was crimson red and maybe silver. A chariot, man, at camp, you know, last year, man. So, you know, these chariots, they look like all different kinds of things, man, you know. So you're going to see some crazy, you know, looking chariots, man, coming soon, man. Yeah, coming soon, right? It says, and whensoever, verse 4, and whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it filleth the fire. After this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number, right? It was going into those nations, right? The valley of YAHAWASHI, these nations being gathered together, right? Matter of fact, let's go to that, right? Let's prove it, right? This is Joel 2, and it's like it, Joel 2. Salak, it's Joel, the 3rd chapter. Right here, Joel 3 and 2, it says, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of, it says Jehoshaphat, but we know it's YAHAWASHI, meaning the Heavenly Father judges, right? It says, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. Which again, right, that's going into, you know, that word plead goes into judge, right? And what is that going to look like? That judgment is going into, is what? Destruction, right? And we're going to read that, right? We're going to read that YAHAWASHI is going to do just that, right? 2 Kings 13. In verse 5 again, it says, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number, right? All these different nations and their armies, from the 4 winds of the heaven, to subdue the man that came out of the sea. So they were ultimately trying to, you know, take YAHAWASHI down, right? You've seen it in movies such as, you know, Independence Day, right? War of the Worlds, right? This is just ultimately what, you know, Esau, you know, has ultimately tried to, you know, to show you people, to make you think that he's going to be able to prevail. But again, we just read in Revelation's 12th chapter, right? And they prevailed not. And again, we're reading an in-depth, you know, look into exactly what's going to happen to them, right? It says, but I beheld, and lo, he graved himself a great mountain and flew upon it. And can a mountain fly? No, man. This is talking about one of them chariots, some so-called UAPs or UFOs, man. Right? It says, but I would see the region or place where out the hill was graven, and I could not. So it's saying it was so big that he couldn't even see the ends of it. You know? Couldn't even see, you know, the true size, right, of what it, or how big the chariot was. Right, so they're saying, oh, the size of Manhattan for this 3-eye atlas. Hey, best believe that YAHAWASHI's chariot is going to be far greater and far bigger, you know, than that chariot, you know. So this one could just be a, you know, extremely large chariot that's flying through space, you know. And you know, Esau's tripping at that. Oh, man, just wait till YAHAWASHI comes, right? It says, verse 8, it says, and after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet there's fight, right? The Lord's going to ultimately put them in the spirit to fight anyways, man. Even though they're going to see, right, what they're going to see, and they're going to be afraid, right? YAHAWASHI is going to make sure that they fight anyways, right? Because that's prophecy, man. You know? It says, verse 9, it says, and lo, and as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war, but only I saw that he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. That's right, you know. And I want to grab this in the blue letter in Habakkuk. Actually, I think it's Habakkuk, the 3rd chapter. Right here. And it says right here, it says Habakkuk, right? It says God's deliverance of his people. Because there's two things YAHAWASHI is going to do, right? One of them we're reading about, which is YAHAWASHI is coming to destroy, you know, these armies, right, of these nations, you know, and take, you know, whoever's in power, take them out of power, you know, and set up a righteous rulership in his stead, you know. But at the same time, what is he going to do? He's going to command the elect, right, to be delivered and gathered from the four winds of the earth. We read that in Matthew 24, verse 29 to 31, right? So this is all going to happen simultaneously, right? As well as these ICBMs being shot off, you know, which that's a lot, right, for one, you know, instance. But see, it has to be this bad, man. You know, it has to be, you know, that, you know, basically action packed, you know. But it says right here, I'll continue to read. It says a prayer of Habakkuk the prophet upon Shigionoth, right? It says, O Yahweh, I have heard thy speech and was afraid. O Yahweh, revive thy work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years make known, in wrath remember mercy, right? It says the Most High came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran. Salah, his glory covered the heavens, right? Covered the sky, right? When YAHAWASHI comes, he's coming with an army. You know, you read in Revelation, the 19th chapter, man, that he's coming with an army, right? It says, his glory covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise, and his brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his hand, and there was the hiding of his power, right? It says, before him went the pestilence, and burning coals went forth at his feet, right? And I want to go into that word horns, right? Strong's G 7161. It says Quran, right? It says horn, of strength, horn, horn-like projections on the altar. It says of rays of light. Of rays of light, man. You know, so he gonna be sending out those laser beams, man. They're sending out that fire. Right? This is what it's talking about in 2nd Esdras, the 13th chapter, right? That blast of fire, right? That's what this is talking about, man. You know? The prophet's seen this happen, seen this take place, man. You know? And we understand that when the Lord YAHAWASHI, right, has the prophet speak on those things, right? Whatever it may be, hey, you best believe it's going to come to pass, man. You know? But I'll continue on, right? So he's sending out those laser beams, right? And this is the result, right? Verse 11, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. So Ezekiel had seen this, right? And was terrified, you know, of what he had seen, you know. great death, you know, of millions upon millions upon millions of military members, man, being destroyed, man, by YAHAWASHI and his army, right? And YAHAWASHI ain't taking no losses, man. Not a single chariot is going to be, you know, penetrated by any kind of missile or bullet or whatnot by any of these, you know, these mortals, man, by these mortal inventions. Not a single angel, not a single chariot is going to be brought down. You know, all of these armies, these nations are finna be destroyed, man, by YAHAWASHI. You know, so ultimately, Esau, your your efforts to send up some type of, global protection, right? Or protecting or trying to protect the earth. Hey, your attempts are futile, man. It's already prophesied that YAHAWASHI is going to come, right, and destroy and take you out of power, destroy, the wicked, right? Starting with here in America, and you going into slavery. It's it's inevitable, man. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful, seeing these chariots. It's very beautiful seeing these accounts, and reading about this 3-eye atlas, man. It's you see Esau's fucking scared, man. He don't know what to do, but hey, we know what's gonna happen, man, through the spirit and power of YAHAWASHI, But I spoke on Ultimate Finding more information on this, about a week ago. So it was ultimately the spirit, that I seen that Elder Barak's video, which is a beautiful video. Again, go and subscribe and be edified, and listen to what that reporter was saying in that video, about the chariots, man. But that's all I got, man. Lord Will was edifying. Lord Will, straight to the point. I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, YAHAWASHI, Bahashim, Rachak Kodash, double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders, great millstone. Till next time, I say shalom.